You all can hear me clearly?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So we'll continue our discussion from chapter 1, verse 36. Last week we were doing the program, but our entire session got hacked by someone. So we'll continue from what we did last week. So till now we saw just 1 second. Yeah. So till now we saw two reasons that Arjuna gives why he doesn't want to fight. The first reason is compassion, because Arjuna is a devotee, a soft-hearted Vaishnava. Therefore, he doesn't want to fight and kill so many people. The second reason that we saw from verse 32 to 35 is that Arjuna is telling Krishna that if all these people die, whom will I enjoy with? So this is the second reason, enjoyment. So now we are coming to the third reason that Arjuna gives why he doesn't want to fight. And that comes in verse number 36. Papam eva shrayedasman hatvaitan atatayina tasmanara payam hantum datarashtan sabandhavan swajanam hi katam hatva sukina shama madhava. The translation is, sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of goddess of fortune, and how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? So, this is the third reason that Arjuna gives, and that is fear of sin. So Arjuna is telling Krishna, sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. If we kill these people, my dear Krishna, we will get sin. Therefore, I don't want to kill them. So the scriptures explain that there are 6 types of aggressors. And Prabhupada explains in the purport also. So this is a verse in the scriptures which says, Agnido Garadaschaiva Shastra Panir Dana Paha Kshetra Dara Pahari Cha Sad Ete Hi Atatayina. So Arjuna is using the word here, Atatayi. Atatayi means aggressor, or Atatayi means a terrorist. Just like you have the word Atankwad, one who does aggression and terrorism. So there are 6 types of aggressors. The first is Agnida, one who sets another house on fire. So if someone sets our house or someone sets another house on fire, such a person is called an aggressor. The second is Garada, giving poison to another. So when someone gives poison to another, he is also an aggressor. The third is Shastrapani, one who attacks with deadly weapons, AK-47 or a knife or whatever. So such a person is an aggressor, a terrorist or a criminal. The fourth is Dhanapaha, stealing others' wealth. A thief who comes and steals your wealth, either loots your house or does, hacking of your account or whatever. So this is also a kind of aggression, Dhanapaha. Then Kshetra Apahari, stealing property. Stealing your property or taking your property. Such a person is also called a terrorist. And then finally, the sixth is one who kidnaps another's wife, steals another's wife is called aggressor, Dhara Pahari. So according to Vedic scriptures, Prabhupada explains here that anyone who does any of this one thing should be killed. This is the Vedic rule according to Manu Samhita. Any of this one aggression also should be killed. But in the case of the Pandavas, not one, all the 6 aggression was done to them. We all know that the first thing, Agni, the setting their house on fire. So Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan sent the Pandavas to Varnavrata and they made a house of wax material that's easily inflammable, and they wanted to burn Kunti and the Pandavas alive. Can you imagine, when they were small children only, youngsters, that time only Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan wanted to eliminate them. So it's the first aggression that they have done. Second aggression, Duryodhan tries to feed Bhima poison. He gives Bhima poison cake when Bhima was a small child, and Bhima becomes unconscious, and Duryodhan throws Bhima into the river. But somehow the Nagas, Bhima reaches the Nagaloka, and the Nagas bite Bhima. And because he already had poison, and more poison enters, the poison counteracts. And Bhima comes out much more powerful. So this aggression also was done, giving poison. The third aggression, attacking with deadly weapons. This also is done to them. Many times the Kauravas, have tried to attack the Pandavas with deadly weapons. Then finally, Dhanapaha, stealing others' wealth. So this is also done to them, in the gambling match. In so many ways, the wealth of the Pandavas is being stolen away from the Pandavas. And Kshetra Pahari, stealing property. We all know the story of Mahabharata, that actually the entire Hastinapur is the rightful claim of the Pandavas. Dhritarashtra was only a temporary person so that the Pandavas can grow and sit on the throne. But still, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan are trying to steal away the property that is rightfully Yudhishthir's away from Yudhishthir. And they gave Yudhishthir a barren land called Kandaprastha. And Yudhishthir made that Kandaprastha into a heavenly abode called Indraprastha. He didn't touch Hastinapur. This is a different place altogether. But still, Duryodhan took away that land also, took away the property also through gambling. So this fifth kind of aggression is also done to them. And then finally, Dara Apahari. They have tried in so many ways to disrobe Draupadi, to kidnap Draupadi. So many of them are tried. All the six aggression is done to them. Still, Arjuna is telling Krishna, Krishna, let us not kill these people. We will get sin. Come on, by killing such aggressors, you don't get sin. But Arjuna is thinking that whatever they have done, let us forgive them. So Arjuna is such a great soul that he is ready to forgive such people. When we speak about forgiveness, this is the height of forgiveness. This is the extent to which a Vaishnava can go and forgive. He's ready to forgive the most sinful people. We all know, Prabhupada explains also in the purport, that Ravana, the picture that you all see on the screen is Ravana kidnapping Sita, the wife of Ram. So Ravan did only one aggression to Lord Ram. He didn't steal Lord Ram's property. He didn't try to kill Ram. Only thing he stole is the wife of Ram. And Lord Ram killed Ravan for this one crime. But here, Arjuna, the Kauravas have done all the six aggression, including stealing the wife. And still Arjuna is thinking, let me forgive. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that even though the history example is there of Ram killing Ravan, but Arjuna thought that for Ravan was an outsider for Ram, but these are my own relatives, so let me forgive them. The case study of Ram doesn't apply to me. So these are the six kind of aggressors. One who gives poison, one who sets another house on fire, one who attacks with deadly weapons, one who plunders riches, occupies another's land, and one who kidnaps another's wife. So according to Manu Samhita and according to Vedic rules, if anyone does any one of the crime, not all six, any one of the crime can be punished, can be killed, and no sin will come. No. In fact, if Krishna explains in the second chapter that when a king does not punish such sinful people, when a king does not punish such aggressors, then he gets sin for not doing his work. So Krishna is calling Arjuna here as Madhava. So Madhava means husband of Lakshmi, goddess of fortune. So Arjuna is telling Krishna, Krishna, you are Madhava. You are the husband of fortune. So why are you bringing misfortune in my life? Why are you telling me to do something that I don't want to do? But Prabhupada explains in the last line of this purport, which is also there in the slide. Krishna, however, never brings misfortune to anyone, to say nothing of his devotees. So God can never bring misfortune to anyone. God cannot do anything bad to anyone. And what to speak of those who are trying to surrender to Krishna? How can Krishna do anything wrong to such a person? So therefore, Arjuna may be calling Krishna Madhava, saying that Krishna, your name is Madhava, but you're bringing misfortune in my life. But Arjuna should understand that when Krishna is there, there can be no misfortune that can happen in the life of such a person. We'll read 37, 38. Yadi api etena pashyanti dobopahata chetasa kulakshaya kritam dosham mitradrohe chapatakam katam nageyam asmabhi papa tasmat kulakshaya kritam dosham prapashya Janardana. O Janardan, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? So Arjuna is telling Krishna, my dear Krishna, even though these people, because their heart is filled with greed, lobo pahata chetasa, because their heart is filled with greed, they don't find anything wrong in fighting with one's own family, killing one's own family members. But we are cultured people. We know what is right, what is wrong. So why should we fight? They may be greedy people. We are not greedy people. So let us forgive them. Let them do what they want. Let them take the kingdom. But I will not fight. Let me not engage in the acts of sin. So Arjuna in this verse continues his fear about sinful reactions, about destroying the family. So Prabhupada explains in the purport, Arjuna sees that due to greed, the opposite party is ready to fight and kill each other. And Arjuna understands the result of war is that there is destruction of family and there is no benefit for either parties. And there is so much sin involved. Even though a Kshatriya, the rule of a Kshatriya is when a Kshatriya is challenged, the Kshatriya doesn't refuse. When a Kshatriya is challenged either for a gambling match or for a war, Kshatriya never refuses. So, so just like Yudhishthir, when Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana challenged Yudhishthir for a gambling match, even though Yudhishthir didn't want to participate, he had to participate because that's the duty of a Kshatriya. Similarly, here Arjuna is called for this war. So by rule, Arjuna can't refuse. Kshatriya can't run away from a challenge. But Arjuna is saying that it's true. According to Kshatriya rule, I should not refuse. But then the other party is blind to the effect of this challenge. They don't know what is the consequence of this. And therefore they are ready to fight. But I know what the consequences. I can see the future. So many lakhs of people are going to be killed. So therefore, my dear Krishna, I will not fight. I have considered all the pros and cons. Therefore, my decision is I am not going to fight. So this is the third reason that Arjuna gives, fear of sinful reaction. So till now we saw three reasons. First is compassion. Second is enjoyment, lack of enjoyment. The third is fear of sinful reaction. Three reasons that Arjuna has given till now why he doesn't want to fight. So from text 39, Arjuna starts to give the fourth reason why he doesn't want to fight. And that is destruction of family tradition. So we'll read this, text 39. Kulakshaye pranashyanti kula dharma sanatana dharme nashte kulam krishnam adharmo bhivati uta. With the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in religion. So Arjuna is telling Krishna, not only that we will get sin, But when the family is destroyed with the destruction of the dynasty, so many men are killed, what will happen? Family tradition will stop. And when family tradition stops, the entire family will become involved in adharma. Kulakshaye pranashanti kula dharma sanatana. So when kulakshaya, when the family is destroyed, then kula dharma, family traditions are destroyed. Dharme naste kulam krishnam adharmo bati uta. So when the family traditions are destroyed, then adharma, irreligion comes up. So this is the fourth reason that Arjuna gives: destruction of family tradition. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that fighting will cause family destruction in the following 6-step sequence. So what will happen is, Prabhupada explains in the purport that generally the elders in the family are very, very important, because when the elders are there, then the elders see that the family tradition continues in the family, isn't it? So when the elders are not there, then family traditions don't continue, and the entire family becomes corrupted and involved in irreligion. So Arjuna is thinking that if in this war so many elderly people die, how is this family tradition going to continue? And so therefore, not only Arjuna is thinking so far-sighted that he's telling Krishna that not only now, generations later also will face the consequence of this war. Just like when the Americans came and bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan, the effects of that bomb blast, the atom bomb, it lasted for generations together. So similarly, Arjuna is thinking that this is not a small war, this is a big war. And in this war, if so many elderly people die, not only now, children who are there now, and the children to be born, all your traditions will get destroyed, and I will get the reaction for that. For all the irreligion that is going to happen, I will be the cause of it. Therefore, I don't want to fight. So, we have discussed this many times that the meaning of dharma is generally translated as duty, religion, religious duty. But actually, the meaning of dharma, Prabhupada translates dharma as constitutional position. That means that which sustains that particular object, that which is integral to something. Just like sugar, the dharma of sugar is to be sweet. The dharma of chili is to be hot. The dharma of salt is to be salty. That means you cannot separate sweetness from sugar, saltiness from salt. Similarly, the dharma of all of us is something that's intrinsic to us, our innate nature. So we have two dharmas, right? We have the dharma of the body and we have the dharma of the soul. Both these dharmas are important, but the most important is the dharma of the soul. So paradharma means spiritual dharma, sanatan dharma, which is common to everyone. Whether someone is a Kshatriya, Brahman, Vaishya, Shudra, whatever, Grahastha, Brahmachari, Sannyas, all of our duty is to serve Krishna. That dharma is constitutional, to serve the Lord. But for the body, apara dharma, according to different body, different time, situation, we have different duties to perform. Just like you can see in the tree, if the tree of dharma is there are various kinds of dharmas. Samanya dharma, varna dharma, guna dharma, ashram dharma, rashtra dharma, jati dharma, stri dharma. So many types of dharmas are there. But of all these dharmas, the most important is our constitutional dharma, the duty of the soul to serve the Lord. So Arjuna is telling Krishna that if all the elders are dead, who is going to take care of all these different dharmas? Varnashram dharma, Stri dharma, who is going to do all this? Therefore, my dear Krishna, I will not fight. So in our Vedic scriptures, there are 16 samskars, the Manusmriti explains. Hmm? These are different kind of samskars that are there. So these sanskars are religious duties. 16 major samskars and 40 other samskars are there. So sanskar basically means purificatory process. The scriptures explain Janma Jayate Shudro Samskara Bhave Dvija. All of us by birth we are all Shudra. That means unpure. But when we undergo samskar, proper cultural training, when we carry out religious duties, then we actually get gradual purification and we can actually come to the platform of Brahman. So the entire thing, we will not get into the detail of all this samskar, but just to give you an idea, there is Garbhadan Sanskar. So Garbhadan Sanskar is before conception, before the man and woman come together, there is something called Garbhadan, so that the right kind of child is attracted, the right kind of soul is attracted. So then there is something called Pumsavanam in the 3rd month of pregnancy. And then Simantam for protection of the mother before the childbirth. So these are different kind of samskar. Probably, there are some of the samskar that still go on. Then there is, once again, then there is Jata Karma for intellectual development of the child. And then there is Namakaran, name giving ceremony. These are all important sanskars in our Vedic scriptures. And in fact, birth of the child and even the entire pregnancy is a kind of celebration where at different periods there is a different, so each of these sanskar is actually a kind of celebration and auspiciousness. Just like when Krishna was born, there was a huge celebration, Brahmanas are called, they're given prasad, they are served, when Krishna starts to crawl, there is an entire ceremony there. So the whole idea is that when you carry out all this samskar in a very nice way, then there is purification that happens for the entire family. So there is Namakaran, name giving ceremony. Then there is Nishkramam, taking child first time out of the house. So generally it's not that the child is born, you just take him out. There is a particular process also. At the right time, the child is taken. So this is actually a proper Vedic science. And then there is Annaprasan, the first time feeding solid food to the child. This is also a big celebration. Then there is Chudakaranam, first time cutting the hair of the child. Probably those who are parents, you will have done all this for your children. And then there is Karnat Vedam, piercing the ear. This is also very important. Whether the child is boy or girl, piercing the ear. So it is explained that when you pierce the ear, then actually the intelligence actually develops. Then there is Vidyarambam, child is taught to write for the first time. This is a huge celebration. Child is taught to write. So if you have gone to Udupi, the Pajakshetra, the birthplace of Madhvacharya, there are huge stones there where Madhvacharya started to learn writing. So this is also a very beautiful ceremony. So these are all important sanskar. And then there is Upanayam sanskar, wearing of the sacred thread. And then there is Praistrantam, before and after each year of study. And then there is Keshantam, the first shave of the boy, after he gets mustache, beard. And Ritu Suddhi for the girl, after the first menstrual cycle. And then there is Samavartam, end of student life. And then Vivaha Samskar. This is also very important samskar. It's not that just, you just live together, live in relationship. No, there's a proper sanskar there. And then finally, there is Antim Samskar or Antesti, last rites. So right from the birth, not even birth, before the birth, Garbhadan, till the end, these are all the sanskars that are there in the Vedic scriptures. So Arjuna, and who carries out all these sanskars? These are the duty of the elders. The elders are supposed to do this, to see that these ceremonies continue. The tradition continues. But Arjuna is feeling that if the elders are killed in this war, who is going to carry out all these traditions. Therefore, he tells Krishna that according to me, we should not get into this fight. We will read text 40 also. Adharma bhivavat Krishna pradushanti kulastriyah strishtu dushtashu vasneya jayate varna sankara. So Arjuna further sees destruction of family and society. So Prabhupada explains here that, so the translation is, when irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny. So in text 39, Arjuna explained why elders are important. Here Arjuna is telling why women are important. So Arjuna is telling Krishna that if elders are destroyed, if all the men are killed in this war, and if the traditions stop, then the women will become polluted. So if the women don't have positive engagements in terms of different pujas and sadhanas, then they will get polluted. And when the women get polluted, the entire society degrades. So that's why for any society, women are the backbone. If the depending on what is the standard of the women, that's how the standard of the society will be. And even in a house, we have seen so many examples when the women in the house become devotees, when they become godly and God conscious, naturally other family will follow because the woman is handling the kitchen department, food is needed, everything is needed, she's managing the house. Therefore, for the women to be godly is very, very important. And that's why in our Vedic culture, protection to women is utmost. So we'll be seeing this that in our Vedic culture, there are 5 people who are considered to be very, very important. Or in any cultured society, progressive society, 5 people should be protected. So just like that, if you want to test whether rice is cooked, how do you test? Take 1 grain and check. If that 1 grain of rice is cooked, the entire bartan of rice is cooked. Correct? So similarly, if you want to test whether the society is advanced or not, check these 5 things. 5 people should be protected. If these 5 people are protected and happy, that means society is great. If these 5 people are not protected, they are abused, exploited, and they are not happy, that means the society is in a mess. The society is completely uncultured. The first kind of people who need protection is women. Protection means respect, care, appreciation, women first. Second is, so protection of women, handle with care. The Ramayana story is, and Mahabharata story also. Both these wars happen because women are mistreated. Please do understand, when people say that in Vedic culture, women were treated backward, they were treated as slaves. Just see the 2 itihas, the 2 biggest epics of India, Mahabharata, of this great land of India. Both these 2 wars, major wars happen because one woman is mistreated. In Ramayana, one woman, a cultured woman, Sita, is mistreated. Entire war is raised to protect one woman. That's how even one woman was respected. And in Mahabharata, because Draupadi was mishandled, was mistreated, entire war was raged. So therefore, protection of women is utmost. If you want a cultured society, healthy society, if women are happy, then the society is happy. So this is the first principle, protection of women. Second is protection to children. Children need to be protected. Physically, emotionally, in every way, children need to be protected. That's why in our Vedic culture, first food is always given to children. Children need special attention. So protecting children from harm, seeing that they are giving the right kind of education, culture is something that's very important. The third kind of people who need to be protected are the old people, because they're helpless now. They need to be protected. It's not that someone becomes old, you throw them in the old age home, you don't care for them. No, you have to protect the old, because everyone is going to go old at some time. At one, there's the story of one young man who's taking his father to an old age home. So as he's taking his father to the old age home, the father sees a bench in a park and he sits down there and begins to cry. So the son asks the father, "Why are you crying, father? Is it because you're going to get separated from us?" The father says, "No, I'm not crying because of that. I'm thinking that today you are taking me to the old age home, but your day will also come and your son will also take you to the old age home. Thinking about you, I'm crying now." So that time the son takes the father back to his house. So protection of old people is very important. Just like Arjuna is telling here, that because the old people are wise people, they have seen more of life, they have more experience. So learning from old people and protecting people, old people thinking that they are great assets, we can learn so much from them. It's so very important to get blessings of old people. And then the fourth uh, kind of people. So first we saw women, children, old people. The fourth is cows. Cows need protection. And it's so sad in today's society where cows are not protected at all. Cows are just roaming in the streets, eating plastics, eating dirt, taken to slaughterhouses, killed ruthlessly. So cows need protection, because cows are like mothers that give milk, the miracle food for everyone. So the cows need protection. If the cows are happy, then Krishna is happy and the entire world will be peaceful. If the cows are in misery, the cows are tortured, the entire society will be tortured. All this COVID and all these reasons are because innocent animals are being tortured in so many ways. So protecting cow is something that's very, 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 very crucial for the upkeep of the society. And then finally, the fifth is protection to Brahmanas. Protection to the Vaishnavas, Brahmanas, who are maintaining the spiritual vibration of the society. Otherwise, what's the point in having money and having everything when spirituality is not there? Just like Jesus Christ tells in the Bible, what's the profit in gaining the entire world but losing your own soul? So protecting Vedic culture, and Brahmanas are the ones who protect Vedic culture. So in any proper society, these five kind of people need to be protected: children, women, old people, Brahmanas, cows. And in modern society, in so-called 21st century, in the modern era, all these five kind of people are unprotected and exploited. Women are exploited, and women are exploited thoroughly in the name of women's liberation. The women's liberation, the entire idea started by men to exploit women. Women are exploited in so many ways, abused in so many ways. Where is the respect of women? Uh, Women are not protected. Second, children are not protected. There's so much abuse of children going on. Cows are not protected. Cows are not happy. The Brahmanas, no one even cares for the Brahmanas. It's like a dead asset, it's a liability to the society. They are considered to be pests, of the society. And old people are not protected. So because these five kinds of people are not protected, modern society, no one is happy. So just like I gave you that example, if you want to check whether the rice is cooked, check one grain. Similarly, if you want to keep the society very sane, cultured, and a happy society, protecting this five kind of people is very, very crucial. So this is like the litmus test to check whether society is going in the right direction. So society is going in the right direction, these five kind of people need to be protected. So that's why Arjuna is telling Krishna here that if so many men die here, if so many elderly people die here, family traditions will not be maintained, women will not be protected, the children will not be protected, and the entire society will go in a wrong direction, and I will be responsible. So I'll stop here from text 41. We'll continue the next time. Anyone has any questions? Yeah, any question you want to ask?
Hi Anand, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
No question. I just got good knowledge today from you. Very happy to learn all these sanskars and all. Nothing else.
Good, good. Anyone else has any other questions? Okay, so let's end for today. So we'll continue. I think probably we should be able to hopefully complete this first chapter. Okay. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.